is over. And this stunning collapse has silenced this building. For the second consecutive year, Canada loses a heartbreaking game to the Russians.
It's been a tough 3 years for Team Canada, but the lockout might be a blessing in disguise. These players have traded an NHL jersey for a red and white maple leaf. The road to the World Juniors makes a stop in Vanta. Team Canada begins its pre-competition against Finland next.
Volte Arena, about 25 minutes outside of Helsinki, Finland, where this wintry morning we get our first look at Team Canada 2013. The 23 young men chosen to try to end a 3-year... Whoa! Careful, Ryan, they need you. It's the road to UFA of the 2013 World Juniors. Good morning, Canada. James Duthie and Bob McKenzie with you. Little giddy today, not going to lie, because for the first time in almost 7 months for Bob and I, we get to panel a live hockey game, and better yet, a World Junior game. Yes, as painful as the lockout has been, and man, it's been plenty painful, the one thing it has done has made this World Juniors more highly anticipated than usual. And that says something. It begins 6 days from now in Ufa, Russia. Today, Canada gets the first of 2 tests, pre-tournament tests against Team Finland. Let's introduce Canada to its team. Who are the guys you're watching most closely today? What are the number one issues facing the squad?
Well, James, I've got 3 major questions going into this game, this pre-tournament game today, and they all involve number ones. And start with on defense. Can Morgan Riley, the Toronto Maple Leaf prospect who plays for the Moose Jaw Warriors, can he step up and play well enough defensively? We know he's great offensively. Can he play well enough defensively on the number 1 pair with Dougie Hamilton? The other question involving number ones is the goaltending. Malcolm Subban of the Belleville Bulls, a Boston Bruin first-rounder, he gets the start today. And this was the guy that was penciled in for the number 1 job. There's most definitely a competition here between he and Jordan Binnington for that number 1 spot. The question for me is, can he step up? He had the worst save percentage of all the 4 goaltenders in the final selection camp last week in Calgary, but he had 2 great games against the Russians in the summer camp, and this is a player that they had penciled in as their number 1 goaltender. Can he play like a number 1 goaltender? The next question would be up front, and that is, when you look at the number 1 line with Ryan Nugent-Hopkins in the middle, Ty Rattie replacing Jonathan Huberdeau today, who's finishing up a Quebec League suspension. The question for me is, can Mark Scheifele, the Winnipeg Jet first-rounder who plays for the Barrie Colts, can he play out of position on that number 1 line? He's a center who shifted over to the right wing. Can he play well on the wing, and will he develop the kind of chemistry you need to have with Ryan Nugent-Hopkins on a number 1 line? Because if Scheifele doesn't do that, then it alters all the other lines that you saw up there, where Scheifele would drop into the second-line center, everybody would bump down.
By the way, Huberdeau's suspension will end tonight. He'll be eligible for Canada's next game Saturday against Sweden, because his St. John team playing that 4th game of his 4th game suspension tonight. Canada's streak of 5 straight goals ended 3 years ago in Saskatoon in overtime. Steve Spott, Kitchener Rangers head coach, was an assistant then, has thought about it pretty much every day since then. He's the head man now, and he's with Mark Masters.
Steve, so much attention on Mark Scheifele playing on the wing. What do you have to see from him tonight to say he's progressing at that position?
Well, I think when we first went down this path with Mark and obviously with Ryan and Jonathan, I think chemistry is the first word that comes to mind. And, they enjoy each other's company off the ice. In practice, they've looked great. When we've done any situation drills in practice, Mark's had no difficulty with getting pucks out, getting pucks in, and understanding his responsibilities as a right winger. So hopefully that translates well to a game here against Finland. And if it does, it'd be a dynamic line moving forward.
At the selection camp, you said it wasn't enough for your skilled players to simply create chances. They had to score goals. With Jonathan Drouin, the 17-year-old from the Halifax Mooseheads, does his line, that second line with Strom and Ritchie, have to score to stay together?
Well, again, I think it's important that all 4 lines create offense. I think even when you look at a player like Phil Deneau or Anthony Camara, who are on what we call our 4th line, those players are scoring at the major junior level. So we think we can create offense in all 4 lines, but ultimately when you look at that line, with Ryan Strome, with Brett Ritchie and Jonathan Drouin, we fully expect that will be an offensive threat every time they're out on the ice.
Coach, best of luck tonight.
Thanks, Mark.
First of many doubleheaders you'll watch over the holidays. USA-Sweden after this one, but it's Canada-Finland next on TSN.
The 2013 IIHF World Junior Hockey Championship pre-competition is brought to you by the proud premier sponsors of Hockey Canada. Imperial Oil, our Esso Smart gasoline works harder for you. Think clean. By RBC. RBC Play Hockey, providing all Canadians an opportunity to play the game. By Nike, providing Team Canada with the best in fitness training products. And by TELUS, proud telecommunications partner of Hockey Canada. The 2013 IIHF World Junior Hockey Championship pre-competition is brought to you by Chevrolet and by Molson Canadian, proud sponsor of Hockey Canada.
Your starting goaltenders are brought to you by Chevrolet. Jani Juvonen, who's draft eligible this year, gets the start for Finland. In the Canadian net, it's Malcolm Subban. Had the lowest save percentage of any of the Canadian goalies at the camp. Wasn't his strongest camp, but was terrific this summer in 2 games against the Russians. Canada's first pre-tournament test right now. To call it for you, Gord Miller and Ray Ferraro. Guys?
Thank you, James. There is Malcolm Subban, the 18-year-old who will be 19 tomorrow, getting the starting goal for Canada. And Jani Juvonen, the 18-year-old who plays for Pelicans Lahti in the Finnish Elite League, also plays for their second division team. Will get the starting goal for the Finns to kick off this 4-team mini tournament. Later on today, the Swedes will take on the United States. Canada will play Sweden on Saturday. Steve Spott in the middle is the head coach for Team Canada. You see Don Knockbauer in the foreground. As Malcolm Subban of the Belleville Bulls, Ray, gets a chance to prove himself that he is the #1 man in goal.
Much talk about Subban being penciled in as the starter prior to the evaluation camp, and he struggled at times, as you mentioned, Gord, in those exhibition scrimmages. Yet he showed some compete and some composure. After he gave up some early goals, he seemed to settle in. He'll want to put a good foot forward this afternoon.
Scott Harrington, a returnee for Canada, plays the puck ahead. The #1 line is on the ice for the Canadians, centered by Ryan Nugent-Hopkins along with Mark Scheifele and Ty Ratty. Jonathan Huberdeau is not eligible to play in this game, suspended for 4 games by the Quebec Major Junior League. That suspension being honored by the IHF ends after this game. So a chance for Ratty to play on the #1 line and sends that puck in deep.
Ratty told me at the evaluation camp he just wanted one of the 13 spots, and he felt once he could get to those 13 spots, he could make a mark. Well, he's going to get a good opportunity here.
Olli Mata played that puck ahead for the Finns, the London Knights defenseman. Now the puck stripped away and moved ahead by Dougie Hamilton. Up to the middle for Ryan Strome, and Strome across the line, had that puck bounce away. And here is Morgan Riley. Toronto Maple Leaf first-round pick for Strome, who's an Islander first-rounder. That bounces in deep, and Juuso Riikola had a bouncing puck in the corner, slid that ahead. And now brought in by Henrik Haapala, number 25, fires on goal, and Subban makes his first save.
One of the things we noticed early about Subban at the evaluation camp is how much he relies on his glove and how much he likes to use it. Very quick glove hand, and the first shot that Subban sees in Europe is a long slapper, clear look at it, and he easily gloves it.
And one thing Canadian goaltending coach Ron Tugnut talked to the goaltenders about is the angle differences on the big ice in Europe. Now this is a Finnish ice surface. It's the hybrid, halfway between the NHL ice surface and the full Olympic size surface.
Once they get to the Olympic size surface, there's so much dead area outside the dots, and for the goaltenders, some of them are able to adjust easier and quicker than others, but the shot from outside the circle, which is still a relatively dangerous shot in North America, is not there. The Europeans will look to pass into the middle, and the goaltenders have to make sure they play inside the dots. They use the dots as their edges of the rink and let that dead area take care of itself.
Philip Deneau wins that draw for Canada, playing along with Anthony Camara and Nate McKinnon. And this is McKinnon across the line, the Halifax Moosehead scoring sensation, who will be a top 2 pick at worst in the upcoming NHL entry draft. And Camara with it, being harassed there by Marcus Granlund, who will play in his 3rd World Junior for the Finns. The younger brother of Minnesota first-rounder Michael Granlund.
And he was part of that. He was part of that top line that was so dangerous last year for the Finns with his brother Michael and Timo Pulkkinen, the Detroit draft pick, and he was kind of the third wheel on that line. This year, it can't be that way for Marcus Granlund.
Valkonen being harassed there by Nugent Hopkins, who finally gets to play for the Canadian junior team. He becomes the second player to play in the junior after playing in the Men's World Championship. Patrice Bergeron did the same thing in 2005 after playing in the 04 World Championship. Nugent Hopkins was cut 2 years ago by Team Canada prior to the tournament in Buffalo. And Mata back for it. And Mata got bumped there by Mark Scheifele. And of course, Mata hit early in the tournament last year by Canada's Boone Jenner, which knocked him out for the balance of the event.
Well, that was a big loss for the Finns. They really had to tax their other defensemen without Mata.
Riley, pass through the middle for Nugent Hopkins, who took a slash on the way by Matty Lambert and returns the favor on his way off.
Well, there's the one thing the Finns have always been is pesky. They're the edgiest of the European teams.
Griffin Reinhart digging for it in the corner. Son of longtime NHLer Paul Reinhart, who also played internationally for Canada in the 1981 Canada Cup.
And they've got, the Reinharts have quite a lineage of hockey players. Griffin's brother Max plays in Abbotsford in the American Hockey League, and younger brother Sam will be a high pick in next year's draft, the 2014 draft. He plays in Kootenay of the Western Hockey League.
Bumping along the wall, the puck played in deep, and Canada's Ryan Murphy fell on defense. Murphy, number 14 of the Kitchener Rangers, now back into play as Xavier Ouellet, number 16, picks it up for the Canadians, and now Murphy on it. Murphy, a dynamic offensive defenseman, plays it up to center ice, but the play is broken up and scooped up by Miro Aaltonen. Aaltonen, a returnee from last year's team for the Finns, plays that in deep. And the puck now loose along the wall, bounced away from Aaltonen, and a long shot there by Lindbaum, and Petteri Lindbaum's shot knocked away, but played with a high stick, and play is called.
Some predictable unsettledness for the Canadians. There's Xavier Ouellet. Ouellet, who missed all of the evaluation camp with a high ankle sprain. This is his first game action in a few weeks, and the Detroit Red Wings draft pick getting his feet wet. They want to play him a lot. They want to see how he'll respond, but they were pretty certain leaving evaluation camp that Xavier Ouellet is fine to assume a top 4 role.
Boone Jenner centers his third line along with Charles Hudon, number 10, and J.C. Lepon of the Kamloops Blazers. And again, with the lockout on in the National Hockey League, Boone Jenner likely would have come to Canada's camp expecting to be a top 2 center. But with both Ryan Strome and Ryan Nugent-Hopkins available, a returning player who's one of the top scorers in all of junior hockey centers the third line.
There's really been an offensive growth to Jenner this year as his goal production is way up. And we'll see a more rounded Boone Jenner as he probably projects to be a third-line center in the NHL, but with Columbus. But right now, he's someone that Canada can look for some offense here on this third line.
And Lipon, number 2 in the Western Hockey League in points, while Jenner was tied for the OHL lead in goals when he left for the Canadian selection camp. Rink wide pass scooped up by Joel Armia, and the Buffalo first-rounder flips that wide. Battle for it in the corner. Ouellet is in there. Armia as well. Armia will play his third World Junior, and a penalty coming up to the Finns. Subban makes his way off, and Canada will get an early power play in the first period.
And it will be Armia for high sticking in the corner. He and Xavier Ouellet go into battle for the puck. Armia gets the stick up, and we'll get a first look at Canada's power play that will feature Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, but will not have Jonathan Huberdeau. Here's the high sticking penalty. There you see the stick to the side of the helmet of Ouellet. That's called almost every time in international hockey. And here's the Canadian power play.
Mark Scheifele trying to work his way in. The puck rolled away from him. The referees in this game, by the way, are Jari Leivinen and Antti Bowman, both from the Finnish Elite League. But a chance now for the Canadians to get accustomed to the international rules and the international style of calling games. Nugent Hopkins picks his way ahead, drops it back to Hamilton. Rink wide, he goes to Ratty. Trying to drop it back for Scheifele. That pass is broken up by Mikko Veitonen, number 66. Riley. Pass knocked down by Nugent Hopkins. Ratty to Riley to Hamilton. Feeds out across to Riley. And now Nugent Hopkins sets it up. Rink wide he goes. Hamilton a slap pass trying to find Ratty. That was knocked away. And Riley with it. Back to Hamilton. One-time shot went off the leg and wide. Nugent Hopkins back with it. Back it goes to Hamilton. The puck skipped away from him, and Canada will have to regroup.
The Finns get tight on Scheifele in the middle of the ice, so Nugent Hopkins looks across the ice twice to Dougie Hamilton.
Drop it back to Riley. Nugent Hopkins winds in and shoots, and the save is made through traffic. Juvonen down, the puck's in his equipment as Hamilton took a shot on the rebound, and Yanni Juvonen able to hang on.
Ratty parked on the doorstep, gets tied up, digging away for the rebound. Nugent Hopkins has a terrific release. Maybe the most underrated part of his game is the way that he shoots the puck. The save is made by Juvonen, and then you see Ratty and Olli Mata are going to get tied up in front of the net as the rebound is just shoveled to the front of the net by Dougie Hamilton. And the Canadians have won almost every face-off so far.
Ryan Murphy slides that across to Ryan Strome as the second power play unit gets a chance here. And here comes Murphy with it. Murphy jumping in across the line, works it in deep. Knocked down as Strome tries to find the loose puck. And Jonathan Drouin had that knocked away. Xavier Ouellet, long lead pass. And that bounced away from Brett Ritchie. Final seconds of the Canadian power play. Here come the Finns short-handed. And that shot by Saku Selmanen went off the leg and wide. Armia set to step back on the ice and does as the Finns kill off Canada's first power play.
There's so much talk about developing chemistry, and one of the toughest things to develop it on is the power play.
Strome in for it. And then Charles Hudon bowled his man over. And Hudon back on it. Salamaki bumped there by Lippon, who plays it up to center ice. 8 minutes gone here in the opening period. First of two pre-tournament games for Team Canada, which will take on the Swedes on Saturday before heading to Ufa. And later on today, we will have Sweden against the United States. Terry Lindbaum, St. Louis 6th round pick, whereas number 4 for the Finns and figures to play a prominent role for them. Bouncing puck in the corner, back to get it is Tyler Weatherspoon. And Weatherspoon looks ahead for Lippon, who leaves it there for Jenner. Boone Jenner through the middle for Hudon. And his pass is broken up and played ahead by Robert Leno. Now Canada back on the attack as Jenner. 27 goals for the Oshawa Generals so far this season. And comes in with a big hit on Henry Alvinen. Backing across the line, Jonas Valkonen. And Valkonen's pass is knocked away. Now stolen right back by Thomas Nykop for the Finns. And now Nykop works it ahead. Dougie Hamilton on him. And Hamilton will go off as the Finns will get their first power play. You're watching pre-tournament action for the 2013 World Junior Hockey Championship.
Canada's number 1 defenseman, Dougie Hamilton, sits in the penalty box, cross-checking penalties, so the Finns will get their first opportunity on the power play. And again, much like the power play, you try and build cohesion. It's the most difficult part of the game to build it on is your special teams, and Canada will start with Danault and Hudon up front.
Danault plays for Victoriaville in the Quebec Major Junior League. First round pick of the Chicago Blackhawks in 2011, and they already like him as a player to appear in their lineup soon.
Very diligent, smart player. We saw him score on a real good wrist shot at the evaluation camp. A little bit of a sneaky offensive player, but his calling card is his penalty killing, his face-offs, and his defensive game.
Olli Mata sets things up for the Finns, and Mata brings it ahead. Except for Granlund with a quick shot, and Marcus Granlund turned away by Subban. Mata posted back up at the point. Here's Armia. in a battle for it with Witherspoon. And Army is still on it. Witherspoon shoves him off the puck. Willett lost it. And back at the point. Pass comes down to Lindell. Here's Mata. Elects not to shoot, plays it across to Alton, who plays the point on the power play for the Finns. Now the loose puck comes to J.C. Lippo, who sends it down the ice.
Good zone time for the Finns. Nothing at the net as they look to get the shot from directly in the middle of the ice. If they're going to move the Canadian penalty killers around, they're going to have to be a little more aggressive shooting the puck.
Juuso Ikonen, number 61, able to knock that down. Vainen plays it across to Riikola. Now Ikonen looking down there for Alton, who's moved up now on the power play. And Hamilton is out of the box for Canada, so both teams are 0 for 1 on the power play. Alton being watched there by Hamilton. And the puck loose in behind the Canadian goal. Scooped up by Harrington, who flips it up to center ice. A race for it now, but no touch icing comes into play, and the face-off will come back down to the Canadian zone.
As the team moves into the tournament, Steve Spott is going to have to take a look at so many different combinations, so many different ways to run his bench. And while they have a good idea what they have on their team, some of this will play out in front of them, and they'll make adjustments as they go into the tournament. But really, a first period that is pretty predictable. Your first game in Europe, you're a long way from home. You're still getting used to the time change and to the fact that you're wearing a Canadian flag on your jersey.
Now steal by Scheifele. His centering pass is broken up as Ratty goes looking for it. Scheifele back to the point. Witherspoon, long wrist shot, kicked away. Lindball slides it ahead to Marcus Hannikainen. That long shot drifts wide. Another penalty coming up. And it'll be a slash called against the Canadians, sending the Finns to a second first period power play.
Back-to-back penalties for Team Canada. This time it's Ty Ratty from the Portland Winterhawks. The St. Louis Blues second rounder gets a slashing call, so Canada back to the penalty kill after a very effective first attempt. Well, Canada has just dominated the draws here in the first period. That's been the strongest part of this first 12 minutes.
Canada's won the last 8 meetings against the Finns at the World Junior Championship. Beat them twice last year, 8-1 in the tournament opener, and then 4-0 in the bronze medal game. Finns finished 4th. Their best finish is they won bronze in Vancouver in 06. Here's Armia back on the power play, setting things up. Armia plays it back to Mata. Across he goes, and then shot by Alton and knocked away and sent down the ice.
Moved the puck pretty nicely. Armia is the player for me that shows so much promise, and I thought last year in the tournament his effort level went in and out. This year as a 19-year-old, he has to be the Finns' go-to offensive player.
And that long shoot in by Teuvo Teravainen, gloved by Malcolm Subban, as we mentioned in the selection camp, had the 4th best save percentage of the 4 goaltenders there, and has had an up and down year for the Belleville Bulls, but went in as the presumptive #1 goaltender and emerges that way now.
It's been a while since Canada's had a standalone #1 goaltender, the last being Carey Price. And last year we saw with Mark Byzantine and Scott Wedgwood, and they basically ping-ponged back and forth between starts, and Wedgwood got the big start against the Russians, and it didn't go so well for Canada.
Udall battles that loose puck and fires it by Miro Aaltonen at the point and down the ice. 40 seconds to go in Finland's second power play. Riikola slides it ahead to Juuso Ikonen. And that time Xavier Willett got to it and played it out. Ikonen looking for Aaltonen, that's knocked away. Canada breaks back shorthanded. Brett Ritchie who might have the hottest stick in all of junior hockey, not just the CHL. As spun around there was Lindbaum, and that'll be another penalty coming up to Canada just as the first expired. Ryan Strome will go off for the hook.
As much as these players have played in Europe before, there was always an adjustment playing in Europe and the way the games are called. Now that's a penalty anywhere. The hook by Strome. The slash by Ratty perhaps is one that Ratty would not quite think is a penalty, but you have to adjust. You're playing there, the officials will call the game a certain way. Canada shorthanded for the third time in the first period. Another face-off win for Philip Deneau.
And a brief 5-on-3 now expires. And remains 5-on-4. And Mata with a shot. That deflected wide. Subban didn't see it. And Marcus Granlund plays that for Mika Salamaki, who will play his third World Junior for the Finns. Here's Mata with a chance. Slap pass in front. Subban down. Subban bowled over. A penalty coming up again as Marcus Granlund was sent flying into Subban, and a pile up in the Canadian crease. And the cross check will be called against Canada, so it'll be another 5-on-3. This one a lot longer.
Yeah, this one is Scott Harrington for the cross check. Mata tries the slap pass, and there's the cross check. Not the first one, but the second one by Harrington. And I mean, the referee's standing 5 feet away, and Canada's come unglued here a little bit discipline-wise in the first period. An offensive zone penalty by Ryan Strome, a cross check by Scott Harrington, and Deneau's 5 for 5 on the draws as the puck is cleared by Dougie Hamilton down the ice with 80 seconds of 5-on-3.
And Mata remains on the ice for this Finnish power play. Mata, one of 3 London Knights defensemen who played in last year's tournament. And here's Armia with it. 2-man advantage for the Finns late here in the first period. Armia's shot knocked down by Subban, and the rebound cleared away.
Armia just wandered into the slot, takes the shot, but there's no traffic and no second attempt as it's quickly cleared.
And Willette gets hammered there by Salamaki. Pass across, Granlund shoots, scores! Marcus Granlund on the power play gives the Finns a 1-0 lead.
Moments before, we saw Armia walk into the slot, wander his way in and shoot the puck. This time he comes off the other side, the other half wall, with his stick in the middle of the ice. He freezes the Canadian penalty killers here and puts it on the tape for Marcus Granlund. There's no chance for Malcolm Subban. This is a beautiful play by Armia. Subban one-times it, and the Finns have a power play goal and a 1-0 lead.
Marcus Granlund, the second-round pick of the Calgary Flames in 2011. Takes the Finns to the lead with a 5-on-3 goal, so the Finns will remain on the power play late in this first period. And the Finns remain on the power play for better than a minute. Lipbaum played that up, and streaking ahead was Charles Hudon looking for the shorthanded chance. And now fired down to the Finnish zone. Canada had the edge in territorial play in the early going, but then ran into penalty problems. And the Finns have grabbed the first period lead.
You don't have to be too creative to figure out what point A of Steve Spott's in between periods chat is going to be about.
And this has also kept the Nugent-Hopkins line off the ice for the better part of the last 5 minutes. Juuso Vainio slides it ahead. And now a big collision in the corner. There's Dougie Hamilton. Stepped hard into Thomas Nykop, number 46. Nykop still battling for it. Lindbaum in there as well. And a scramble along the wall as Ritchie finally chips it out. Final seconds now of the final Canadian power play to Scott Harrington. Penalty rather to Scott Harrington. Boone Jenner on it. And as Harrington steps out, Canada finally back to having 5 skaters. 3.5 to go in the opening period. Pre-tournament action from Vanta, Finland.
And as you mentioned, Gord, right away the Nugent-Hopkins line will get their first shift in about 5 minutes.
Ryan Murphy back court, plays it across to Morgan Riley. Ahead to Ty Ratty. Drops it back to Nugent-Hopkins. Playing in the American Hockey League this year for Oklahoma City. Had a terrific rookie campaign for the Oilers last year. Was a Calder finalist despite having his season prematurely ended by injury. That pass by Riley was broken up. And hustling back now is Henry Auvinen, number 55. Lead pass for Salamaki. Drops it back to Armia, who fired that just wide. Another bouncing puck goes just wide of the goal. And Canada under siege here in the late stages of the first period. Armia steps around Ratty. Now loses the puck to Scheifele. He got bumped there by Valkonen. Harrington hustling back. Slides it along the wall to Scheifele. End of a long shift for this group as Scheifele brings it ahead. Still with it, Scheifele had it swept away by Granlund.
It's a couple examples in the period when Canada's had the puck, rushed it up the ice, got to the blue line, and the Finns are stacked at the blue line, yet Canada still tried to stick handle the puck across the blue line.
That's Harry Rindell, the head coach of the Finnish national junior team, a veteran coach in the Finnish Elite League and a longtime assistant in international hockey.
Replaced Raimo Helman, IIHF Hall of Famer, who coached last year. The Finns finished 4th last year in Calgary and Edmonton.
And he's been riding his big horses here in the first period. Army has been going out every second shift. Of course, a lot of that on the power play for the Finns. Morgan Riley falls in the corner. Aaltonen looking for it. Now a loose puck bounces down in front, and fanning on that shot is Juuso Ikonen. Not a good chance for the Finns. Aaltonen digs down low on Riley. Now the puck bouncing ahead. Kamara chips it there for Deneau. Back for Kamara. The pass too far for him. Riikola takes the return pass in across the line. That shot whistled high and wide by Ikonen. Nate McKinnon battles there for the loose puck. Centering pass for Aaltonen, knocked away and sent down the ice by Reinhart. Final minute now, the opening period. Finns lead 1-0 on a 5-on-3 goal by Marcus Granlund, the Calgary Flames prospect. Ryan Murphy flips out in the air, knocked in deep by Brett Ritchie. And now slid through the middle of the ice and chipped ahead by Henrik Haapala. The Finns, by the way, not dressing some of their big guns. Alexander Barkov, expected to be one of their top players, is resting for this pre-tournament game as that shot goes high and wide. Canada is the only team in the tournament that's already made its final cuts. And with 9 seconds to go, we've got a high sticking call coming to the Finns, as going off is Esa Lindell.
As Strome took a penalty in the offensive zone, Lindell takes one here as he gets the stick up on Griffin Reinhart. Poor penalty by Lindell as the Finns are 9 seconds away from a terrific first period closeout. Now Canada will go on the power play. Try and win the draw and get one shot here with 9 seconds left.
Hamilton and Riley on the back end. Nugent-Hopkins, Scheifele, and Ratty up front. And a scrambled draw. The puck loose to Scheifele in the corner. Final second, Scheifele centers it. That puck's kicked out. And Canada will have 1 minute and 51 seconds of power play time to carry over to the second period. Marcus Granlund with the only goal for the Finns. They scored in the 5-on-3 and lead 1-0 after 20 minutes.
Closed captioning is brought to you by The Home Depot. Use your Home Depot card and get the gift you really want.
One more pre-tournament game Saturday, and then it begins Boxing Day against Germany, 4 a.m. Eastern Time. That will be the start for Canada's first 3 games. They play Slovakia, then the Americans on the 30th, and New Year's Eve against the Russians. You get a bit of a break there. 8:30 a.m. Eastern start. The medal round begins on January the 2nd. James Duthie back with Bob McKenzie. They arrived Sunday morning, the Canadians did, in Finland, so I don't know if you can still say jet lag, but that looked like a team that didn't have its legs yet, that weren't really familiar with playing with each other. Does that kind of thing lead to all the penalties, or was it just undisciplined play?
No, I think you're absolutely right, and I think it's less about jet lag, and something I'll probably talk a lot heading into this tournament is that this group, it wasn't like a lot of other selection camps. There were 7 and 8 guys that barely played any hockey whatsoever. I mean, Dougie Hamilton, he didn't even play last week at the selection camp. Ty Ratty did, but he takes that penalty. Ryan Strome, he didn't play much last week at the selection camp, up in the press box watching. And then Harrington, same thing. They take these penalties time after time after time. You're finally going to get burned, and a sniper like Granlund's going to put one by. But my point is, usually at the selection camp, there's this fierce battle for every job from the top to the bottom. Because of the way this shook out this year with the NHL lockout and a lot of givens like Huberdeau and Nugent-Hopkins and Scheifele and Strome and Dougie Hamilton and Harrington and all those guys barely got on the ice last week. And the camp ended up being about the entire bottom half of the roster competing for the 6 or 7 spots that were open. And all the best players on Team Canada didn't have to go through the battle-tested week that most guys usually go through. And I think it's going to take a while for them to get up to warp speed, and that's an example. No pace, no tempo, not moving their feet, not winning battles. It's pretty obvious.
And the top line not on the ice very much, though we did get a glimpse of what Canada's power play will look like, and we'll get another glimpse as the second period starts on the power play, and it looks like everything's going through number 9. Yeah,
Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, and rightfully so. I mean, he distributes the puck better than anybody. I thought Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, like a lot of players, even on the power play here, the puck's not moving, the feet's not moving. He made a nice cross pass there, but look at stationary power play. The puck's not moving very much, the feet aren't moving very much, and as a result, they didn't really have anything to show for their one power play, and maybe in the intermission here they'll get it together and play with a little more pace and tempo, but I like the fact that Nugent-Hopkins took the puck and just shot it there, as opposed a lot of stationary stuff on the power play. You got to get the feet moving, you got to get the puck moving.
And a good chunk of that power play to begin the second period once again. Members of Hockey Canada will receive an early Christmas present this year. Now make sure you activate your Club Hockey Canada card. You'll be eligible for daily prizes and deals. Activate your card at clubhockeycanada.ca. Start saving on everyday costs while putting points toward next year's minor hockey registration. Close to 100,000 Canadians have already activated their cards. You can join the club. The 5-on-3 hurt Canada. Marcus Granlund goes up top on Malcolm Subban, and that's your difference so far. It's 1-0 Finland. The second just ahead here on TSN. The real only positive for Canada in that first period, plenty of work and practice for the PK unit. One of 6 returning players for Canada, the Winnipeg Jets' first pick in 2011, Mark Scheifele, who's with our Mark Masters.
Mark, your first chance to play on the wing against another country. How'd it go?
You know, I thought I went all right. You know, obviously there weren't a lot of 5-on-5 shifts, which was, tough. Penalties on both sides. So, looking to, pick it up in the next period. Hopefully get a few more chances and, keep building.
Lots of travel for you guys to get here. Not so much for the Finns. How'd it feel out there?
Obviously it's, it's been a long road, but I think we've got adapted. And, it's not an excuse. We got to come out and play our game. And, that period we didn't play it. So, we got to get back on track and, start working harder.
Thanks, Mark. Good luck.
Thank you.
No small rodents were harmed in the making of that microphone. The second period just ahead here on TSN, Finland by 1. Welcome back. Your first period scoring summary is brought to you by Chevrolet. Marcus Granlund's first on the power play, 15-13, the only goal of the period. Canada dominant on face-offs. That was one of the other few positives. 12-3. They win in the face-off circle. Gordon Ray had the call of the second.
The shots at goal in this game were 14-4 for the Finns. Officially, the shots on goal, in which the goaltenders had to make saves, were 8-3 in favor of Finland, thanks in large part to long stretches of power play time. And you see some of the Finnish extras, and to the right, Hall of Famer Jari Kurri, still involved with the Finnish men's national team, and he'll be making the journey over to UFA as well to watch a number of the top Finnish juniors who may play for the Finns in the 2013 World Championship. For the second consecutive year, the Finns and the Swedes are sharing the World Championship hosting duties. Last year, the gold medal game was in Finland. This spring, it will be in Stockholm. So Canada opens the second period on the power play as Ty Ratty brings it in. Up there along with Nugent Hopkins and Scheifele. Olli Mata plays that ahead, and knocking it down is Saku Salminen, who fires it down. Hamilton had that knocked away, now sweeps it down. Alvinen plays it back out for the Finns. Dougie Hamilton looks ahead for Scheifele. That pass bounced away from him. Olli Mata plays it across, and Alvinen again pounds it down to the Canadian zone.
When Bob was talking about the players that didn't play very much at camp and the lack of battle test with the Canadian team, you mix that with all the other factors, playing on a different rink, playing with different teammates, and it looks like there's no feel for the game yet for the Canadian team.
Strome knocked off the puck, and it's fired down by Nycott.
Too much individual work. The puck has to move quicker, and again, as they pointed out in the intermission, there's too much standing still, attempt to pass the puck while you're standing still. The Finns don't have to move anywhere. There you see Ritchie's isolated on the one side. They need puck support. And that's something that has to develop as they get closer to the tournament. They have 5 periods of preseason games left.
Murphy falls in contact with Salminen. And across the line comes Strome along with Ritchie, a dynamic duo with Niagara of the Ontario Hockey League. Ritchie, 26 goals in 20 games before leaving for the Canadian camp. Penalized players back on the ice. Here's Murphy with a slap pass that just missed Ritchie. Xavier Ouellette, who played more than any Canadian player in that opening period, 6.5 minutes thanks to all the penalty killing duties, finds Nate McKinnon. Now Strome with it. And that pass knocked away by Granlund. Murphy had that pass skip away from him. But Salminen couldn't hold the line for the Finns. Ouellette with a pass that handcuffed Murphy a bit. And now his clearing pass is knocked down, and Canada gets bottled up again. Ouellette to the line, but not out. And that long shot by Lindbaum goes just wide. And finally, Canada breaks it out. A chance now. Budon works his way in. Budon shoots. That's blocked. And the puck rolls down in front. And brought ahead by Armia. Joel Armia across the line. Centering pass. And that shot fired high and wide by Salminen. Now a 2-on-1 for Canada. Budon ahead to Jenner. Shoots. Kicked away. Rebound. Score. Griffin Reinhart taps it home. And Canada has tied it up.
After very little of this in the first period, 3 rushes in a row, 2 for Canada, 1 for Finland, turned into man advantage breaks. And after Armia's pass was one-timed up over the net, the Team Canada gets a 2-on-1. Budon has the puck, and he's going to feather it across to Jenner. Jenner's shot is stopped. And there's Griffin Reinhart following the play up. The Edmonton Oil Kings defenseman, you see him coming straight up the middle of the ice. The first rounder from the Islanders is unmarked, coming right into the middle of the ice, and he one-times it past Juvonen, who makes the pad save, yet you see how far he slid out of the play. And Reinhart's follow ties the game.
So an even strength goal for Canada. Griffin Reinhart, who has 4 goals in 31 games this year for the Oil Kings, ties it up. And Mata leads the rush now for the Finns. Long shot steered away by Subban. And the puck was played with a high stick. And play is called. For those who need a refresher, a couple of rule tweaks in international hockey that are different than in North America. If there's a player going through the crease, a crease violation, play is blown dead immediately, and the face-off is brought outside. There is, of course, no-touch icing. But gradually, the North American and European rules have migrated towards each other. although the stricter enforcement of contact rules is still something that North American players have to get used to. Nugent Hopkins sends it back in front. Scheifele scores! Mark Scheifele gives Canada the lead.
When they talk about Scheifele's adjustment playing on the wing, the biggest challenge is that you start from a standstill more often on the wing than in the middle of the ice in his natural position. Here you see Scheifele come off the boards. He one-touches it to Nugent Hopkins, and this is just a gorgeous feed. Hopkins to Scheifele, who quickly receives and delivers the puck right through the middle of the ice. Both Canadian goals have been from this same spot on the ice. Poor coverage in front by the Finns. It leaves their goaltender with very little help. But what a gorgeous feed from Nugent Hopkins. The give and go, Scheifele to Hopkins and back to Scheifele. And quickly Canada's reversed a 1-0 deficit.
And Harry Rundell has called a timeout for the Finns. So you'll see Scheifele play with Nugent Hopkins in the tournament. Jonathan Huberdeau, who is not playing today, has a suspension in the Quebec Major Junior League expiring today. And he'll join that top line and likely play in the final pre-tournament game on Saturday against the Swedes. So 2 quick goals for the Canadians.
Well, what we talked about a little bit earlier is a lack of puck movement by Canada, too much individual play, and then quickly it's a 2-on-1 that turns into the first goal with Reinhart following a nice pass that set up the one-timer for Boone Jenner from Charles Hudon, and then a gorgeous feed from Ryan Nugent-Hopkins to Mark Scheifele.
Now Nate McKinnon works his way down low. The puck rolled away from him. McKinnon back on it. McKinnon spins away from traffic, still on it. That long shot drifts wide from Kamara. And Xavier Ouellet pitches in. Plays it back in front. Kamara can't get a shot away. Knocked the stick out. And now the Finns bring it back as Haapala fires it down to the Canadian zone. Subban out to play it. And a battle for it along the wall. Alton centers it. That got by everyone. Kept in at the line for Armia. Joel Armia winds his way in. Armia drops it back, and the shot by Granlund off the post and out.
Well, Armia has been by far the most effective finish forward today.
Back at the line, Vanio had his shot knocked down. Here's Armia back with it. Armia spins off a check. Works it down low, centers it, goes back to the line. Vanio back down to Granlund. For Salamaki. Ricola. That shot off the stick of McKinnon and wide, back out in front. And Armia couldn't pull the trigger. Kamara breaks it back the other way for Canada. Now Armia breaks back in with Leno. Centering pass for Leno. Loose puck in front, and Ouellet settle that down. And he'll bank it off the glass and out. 5.5 gone in the second period. Canada leading 2-1. And play is called at the Canadian line.
A little bit sloppy in the middle of the ice as Canada turns it over a couple times in a row. Just prior, as Armia is stick handling magic into the middle of the ice, and then Granlund beats Subban from the slot again. Granlund, who scored on the 5-on-3 on a Armia feed there, hits the goalpost to Subban's left.
Maybe one of the great backhanded compliments we've ever heard was from Finnish coach Raimo Helminen last year when asked about Armia. Said, well, maybe he's better than he looks.
There are times when last year he would just vanish out of the game, and then you'd look at the score sheet at the end of the game and he'd have a goal and an assist or a couple of assists. The Buffalo first rounder is a focal point of this team this year. Last year it was Pulkkinen and Michael Granlund. This year it's Marcus Granlund and Armia. And Barkov when he gets back in the lineup. Those will be their 3 key forwards.
Bouncing puck in front, knocked away from Charles Hudon. Now Hudon back on it. For J.C. Lepong. And Lepong had that knocked out. Moved ahead by Robert Leno. Leno fires it down in the Canadian zone. Subban out to play. And of course, goaltenders are not restricted in international hockey where they can play the puck. Esa Lindell had his pass knocked away. Here's Hamilton with it. Dougie Hamilton, one of those players with a question mark over him. Should the NHL work stoppage end? Will Hamilton get the call from the Boston Bruins to join them immediately? Teravainen across the line, an extra move put him offside, and play is called. Back with more after this. Goals 36 seconds apart have staked Canada to a 2-1 lead here in the second period. Griffin Reinhart opened the scoring for the Canadians, and then Mark Scheifele followed. Canada with a pair of 5-on-5 goals in the second period. Finland's goal scored in a 5-on-3 from Marcus Granlund in the first. And here's Aaltonen with it. That puck chipped away. Finns will make their final cuts after their pre-tournament game on Saturday, as will the United States and the Swedes. McKinnon dropped it there for Strome. That's knocked away, so McKinnon out there along with Strome and Drouin. McKinnon and Drouin, teammates with Halifax, the Quebec Major Junior League. Here's a lead pass to McKinnon. McKinnon in, shoots, and the save is made by Juvonen. Drouin shoveled that in front. And play called in the corner. We've got a cross-checking call coming up, I believe, against the Finns, as Lindbaum will go off.
Briefly, Drouin and McKinnon, teammates in Halifax, were on the ice together in the first period. This is really their first full shift together. They get in on the cycle where they can be so dangerous. Drouin reverses it to McKinnon. There's the cross-check, and that might be one of your European contact penalties. That was not much of a contract. That was not much of a contact.
Well, especially since the guy who did it was the one who went down. Morgan Rielly loses that puck and sent on goal by Salmon and on the penalty kill. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins winds his way ahead. The 19-year-old from Burnaby, BC, to Ty Ratty. In comes Ratty with it for Nugent-Hopkins. Nugent-Hopkins patiently looks back, now feeds it down to Ratty. The backhand pass in front, Juvonen down, and Dougie Hamilton had pitched in, couldn't pull the trigger.
It seems like Canada wants to have Scheifele play the high slot, move in and out for the one-time pass from Nugent-Hopkins, and have Dougie Hamilton go to the back door. Now there's a hooking penalty coming up, the second time that Dougie Hamilton will go to the penalty box in this game, so Canada's power play is nullified rather quickly. There's the hook in the corner, so maybe it should be 4-on-4 or 5-on-5. But again, this is something they're going to have to deal with, whether they like the calls or not. The calls are made. You have to make sure you don't put yourself in a position to get nicked for what will seem like a hooking penalty that the players will find to be a weak call.
Olli Määttä with time. 4-on-4 here, 11.5 to go in the second period. Canada leading 2-1 in the first of two pre-tournament games from Finland. Here's Määttä with a chance. He fired that high and wide. And now a Canadian defender, Harrington, had lost his stick. But the puck went off the meshing and out of play.
The Finns have shot the puck way more than Canada has in this game. They've missed the net a number of times, up over the glove of Malcolm Subban. Several times they've shot it up over top, and the goal went in. Granlund's one-timer was on the glove side, and the post of Granlund here in the second period was on the glove side as well.
Nugent-Hopkins looks ahead for Scheifele. And now Scheifele collides there with Riikola. Scheifele, who played 7 games for the Jets last year, had that knocked down. Now a penalty coming up again to Canada.
Yeah, this is a tripping penalty against Scheifele. This would be the third penalty in the offensive zone for Canada in the first half of the game.
And it will give the Finns a brief 5-on-3. Teravainen across the line. Canada finally touches up And the tripping call is made. And it will be a 5-on-3.
Shifley has Canada's second goal. Now he sits in the box next to Dougie Hamilton, and as they discuss their penalties, here's the trip coming up on Shifley right here. As Riikola goes down, and now it is a brief 5-on-3.
Mata takes the return pass, feeds it across, and that shot from Järveläinen was broken up. Now Armia with it.
Well, he uses his reach very, very well. Long stick.
Sends it back door. The pass skipped away from Granlund. Back to Mata. Järveläinen. Richard scores! Through the traffic. Another 5-on-3 goal, and the game is tied.
They use the forward, Ville Järveläinen, on the point on the 5-on-3. Played in the USHL in Green Bay last year, and here he walks into the middle again, wanders into the shooting area. Wotherspoon has to either get out and front that shot or get out of the way of it. He doesn't get to it. It's a tough play for the defender, but if he can't get there, you need a save here. This goes right through Malcolm Subban. And although it's a 5-on-3 goal, it's a goal that Subban probably would like back. So Canada's penalty troubles continue, and the Finns have 2 power play goals and have equaled the score.
Järveläinen, by the way, if he makes this Finnish team, will be one of the smallest players in the tournament. He's listed at 5'6", 153 pounds.
He's going to get another attempt here.
And a save made by Subban with the left pad as the Finns remain on the power play for a minute and 20 seconds. Järveläinen winds his way in and takes a return pass from Granlund. Järveläinen had that pass knocked away. A chance for Canada shorthanded now. Udon with Jenner. Udon works in, waits, and shoots, and the net is off. It will be no goal for Canada, but there will be a penalty called against the Finns.
This is a beautiful play by Hudon. Canada gets a break as they were clearing the puck down the ice. It hits Hudon in the back of the leg. And what turns into a 2-on-1 with a back checker, Hudon makes a beautiful stop-up move. There's the player, Salamäki, who slides back trying to deny the pass. And as Hudon walks into the slot, Salamäki knocks the net off. The goal is waved off.
And I believe they're going to call delay of game against Salamäki for taking the net off its peg.
Canada will end up with a power play out of this.
And Steve Spott wondering exactly what the call is. And it will be a Canadian power play once the penalty to Shifley expires. Esa Lindell fires it down now for the Finns. 4-on-4 briefly, then a short Canadian power play. And kept it to the line by Lindbaum. That shot flutters down to Subban, who makes the first save, lost the rebound, and a chance now for the Finns. Nykop works down in the corner on Ouellette. And Xavier Ouellette ties him up. Nykop walks it off the boards. The puck knocked away, but once again kept in. Leno spins away from Ouellette, and here's Strome with it. First pass misfired, now Murphy has it. And Ryan Murphy spins at the line, looks in deep, no one there. Ty Ratty, late getting to it, centers it, and Nugent Hopkins had that knocked away. And Canada now on the power play for 1 minute. And now Leno with a penalty for the Finns. And the parade continues.
Has it ever turned into a parade? It's penalty after penalty, and it seems to go in swarms. First it was Canada taking the penalties. Now Canada will go on a 5-on-3 as Riikola gets called for the hook here as he gets his stick wrapped around Ryan Murphy. Leno with the penalty.
And now as Spot tries to talk things over at the Canadian bench. Assistant coach Andre Tourigny talking things over so they'll get the right players on the ice. And Canada will have a 5-on-3. Nugent Hopkins, Scheifele, and Ratty up front. And this time the draw won by the Finns as they fire it down the ice. And play called instantly after that face-off win and clear.
Some confusion on the ice. It looks as though the face-off will just get moved to center ice. Now they've given Canada an unsportsmanlike conduct penalty. Oh no, they called a timeout here. Finally, the timeout that Canada was looking for 20 seconds ago, they get. I'm not real sure why the whistle blew, as it was just cleared down the ice to Subban.
And you see Steve Spott shaking his head on the Canadian bench. And we've got a goalie change for the Finns we can tell you about. Eetu Laurikainen has come in. 19-year-old plays for Swift Current in the Western Hockey League. So the Finns, who are still in the evaluation process, have swapped goaltenders. Boy, cutting people on Christmas Eve, that's tough.
What about the U.S. is going to do it?
Yeah, they're going to send guys home. Those guys have to fly home.
That's a long flight. That will be a terribly long flight as we get a look at Laurikainen in the Finnish goal. Oh, well, we got it.
Canada on a 5-on-3 is Hamilton. Plays it ahead. Here's Righty. Righty drops it back to Riley. Looks down low to Scheifele, who's got a goal this evening for Canada. Nugent Hopkins back to Hamilton with a drive. Save made, rebound, and somehow Ratty's shot went wide. Hamilton back with it to Riley. To Hamilton. Nugent Hopkins. Hamilton couldn't find that pass. Now drops it back to Riley. Final seconds of the 5-on-3. Riley's pass steered away by Laurikainen and out of play.
Clearly the play that Canada's looking for is Nugent Hopkins to Dougie Hamilton for the one-timer. He powders this, saved by Laurikainen, and the shot by Ratty is actually stopped in combination with the defenseman and the goaltender's stick. It goes through on the right side, comes across, and hits the goal post on the left.
Scheifele plays it back to Riley. In comes Hamilton. Canada remains on the power play for a minute. Nugent Hopkins sends it back in front. Ratty, fan of the one-timer. Back to Nugent Hopkins. Centering pass for Ratty. He's knocked down as Henry Ovinen took him down, and that'll be a penalty to the Finns. And now Ratty has got his stick up with Ovinen.
Ratty took a pretty good shot in front of the Finnish net. He's parked right on top of the crease as Nugent Hopkins goes across to him, and you're going to see the push right there that has been called more than a couple of times today. That's actually probably one of the more distinct cross checks that we've seen. That one not penalized. As while the scrum continues, Laurikainen gets a drink of water. Goalies are safe in there.
So no penalty on the play. And the face-off outside the Finnish zone. And again, that's the crease violation we talked about. Ratty was in the crease, and they call the crease violation. The face-off comes outside.
I like the way that Canada moved the puck on that 5-on-3. They were crisp with it. A couple of real good chances for Dougie Hamilton, and Ty Ratty on the rebound in front of the net.
Nate McKinnon slides it ahead to Drouin. Now the drop pass to the third member of this group, Strome. So we have not seen Brett Ritchie on with this troika for a while. Willette with a shot, knocked down in front. Drouin battling for it. And now McKinnon had that slide away, and the Finns bring it out. Fired down by Salamaki. 6.5 to go in the second period. 2-2 game. The Finns score the only goal of the opening period as Strome brings it in. Strome tries to drop that back. It's off the stick of Marcus Granlund and slides down to Laurikainen. Back with more from Finland after this. Vanta, Finland is the home of this pre-tournament action for the 2013 World Junior Championship. Canada, the United States, Finland, and Sweden have gathered for this little pre-tournament mini competition. We'll have Sweden and the United States later on today. Big collision in the corner as Lipon was taken down by Lindblom. And now J.C. Lipon on it. Undrafted player has gone through 2 National Hockey League drafts. He stands number 2 in points in the Western Hockey League.
Had an excellent year so far in Kamloops. Feisty player. I thought he was one of the players that really made a mark at the evaluation camp and pushed his way onto this roster.
Now a steal by Granlund and the shot turned away by Malcolm Subban.
And I've seen in this half a game here, Gord, what the difference of a 18-year-old to a 19-year-old can be, because both Marcus Granlund and Joel Armia look like completely different players this year than they did last. Last year they looked perhaps a quarter step slower, not as confident with the puck. Granlund has had 3 excellent chances. Scored in the first period, hit the goalpost in the second period, and here a nice move to the middle of the ice that forces Malcolm Subban into perhaps his best save.
And now Granlund faces off against Nugent Hopkins. Edmonton versus Calgary, and Nugent Hopkins wins that. Long drive by Harrington went off a leg in front. And Nugent Hopkins peels back in the corner, looks down for Ratty. Scheifele trying to find some room. And Nugent Hopkins back on it. Spins off the check, centers it. Ratty turned away. Good save there by Laurikainen. And Salamaki flips that way up in the air. The puck strikes the clock and play is called.
Of the many talents of Ryan Nugent Hopkins, his elusivity is incredible. He gets cornered into areas. He's so slippery. He moves, makes just a slight pivot, and he's able to find the open spot. And then Ty Ratty has done a real nice job on a couple occasions playing on that line instead of the suspended Jonathan Huberdeau of finding an open spot for the one-timer.
Draw was won there by Deneau, and the shot goes wide from Hamilton. Kamara in there along with McKinnon trying to dig out that loose puck. And finally comes free as it's played up by Lambert. And right back down to the finish zone. Valkonen with it. Canada starting to throw its weight around here in the second period as Kamara stepped into Valkonen. Kamara known as an aggressive physical player. And he'll have to walk that fine line when the tournament begins in Ufa. Subban leaves it there for Riley. And Morgan Riley crisply ahead for Nate McKinnon. McKinnon works it back in front, and the shot fired wide by Deneau.
There was a little glimpse of Morgan Riley's ability the first time we've seen him get up into the play with the puck. And one thing that I like about the way that he rushes the puck is Riley seems to have the knack of moving it at the right time. There was space for the Canadian forward to attack because Riley moved it with some room for him.
Mikko Väinön, who plays for Kingston of the Ontario Hockey League. And where's number 66, a number we don't often see in North America being worn anymore?
You'd have to be real confident to wear that number here.
On the Russian preliminary roster, there's a player wearing 99. Ryan Murphy with a shot. That's kicked out. And the rebound by Lepong goes wide. Back to Murphy. Plays that down low for Jonathan Drouin. And Drouin, whose name will be called early in the upcoming NHL draft as well. Flips that back ahead. Lepong with it for Strome. So some line juggling here from Spot in the second period. And Strome back on it. Strome falls in the corner. We've seen a couple of guys go down on that spot on the ice. And Lepong on it. Back in front. That pass for Drouin bounced away from him. Good pressure now by Canada in the late stages of the second period, the 2-2 tie.
I don't see, as they scan the bench, I don't see Ritchie on the bench. He's not had a shift, Brett Ritchie, in this period.
In comes Murphy for Scheifele. And we'll get a report on Ritchie as soon as we can. Nugent Hopkins with it. Sends it back to Scheifele with a shot. That goes wide. And the puck is over the glass and out of play. Canada can name its final roster at any time leading up to Christmas Day. 6 p.m. Christmas Day in Russia is when the rosters have to be put in, and it's at that point that the rosters are final. But Canada and any other country can make any changes they want between now and the start of the tournament.
And there was much concern on the availability of Ryan Nugent-Hopkins perhaps a couple of weeks ago. I don't know if there's that concern right now given the way the last week and a bit has gone.
Centering pass bounced away from Ratty, and Armia has it back for the Finns. Armia fanning that shot, knocked down there by Harrington. Here's Granlund with it. Centering pass was bumped away there by Nugent-Hopkins. Now a race for it. Riikola, Nugent-Hopkins, and Riikola had to dive to knock that puck away. Long cross ice pass for Salmonen. Too far for him, and icing is the call.
Good race for the loose puck as Nugent-Hopkins closed the gap on Riikola. Riikola had the awareness to realize he was going to lose the race, and he really leaned hard on the stick, prevented Nugent-Hopkins from what would have been about a 15-foot breakaway.
Riley tied up there by Armia, and the puck knocked free as Armia tries to get around Hamilton, and Hamilton very careful with his stick there. Has already taken 2 penalties in the game. Leaves it there for Riley. Morgan Riley. J.C. Lepong chips that ahead, but from the other side of center ice, and icing called. That's the other thing you'll see in international hockey is they call icing and offside to the letter.
So while that play looks like not much, like a play that would be waved through, now we go back to Canada's zone. A place that Canada's been dominant is the face-off circle, and Boone Jenner will take this draw to the right of Malcolm Subban.
And Jenner wins that draw away from Miro Aaltonen. Pass by Udon. Slipped off his stick, and a chance now. Teravainen for the Finns. Knocked away from him. Lepong. Cross he goes to Dougie Hamilton. Long shoot in. Minutes to go now in the second period. And look out, a collision there between teammates Jenner and Lepong for Canada. Lindbaum spins back at the line. Miro Aaltonen digs it across the line, looks in deep, trying to find Ikonen. And Udon just hacks at that puck and knocks it down to the finish zone. Valkonen chips it down as Reinhart goes back looking for it. Griffin Reinhart has one of the 2 Canadian second period goals and flipped back down to the finish zone. Alvinen back for it. And Harrington had to retreat, couldn't hold the line for Canada. And the play is called offside with 2 seconds to go in the second period.
Well, down one after one. The two goals 36 seconds apart. Reinhart and Scheifele gave Canada the 2-1 lead. 2 5-on-3 power play goals for the Finns. And after 40 minutes, I think you could describe this for Steve Spott's team's best as a ragged performance. And getting their feet wet as the tournament is now just a few days away.
And learning about international officiating. Lots of power plays for both sides. 2-2 the score after 2 periods.
Closed captioning is brought to you by The Home Depot. Use your Home Depot card and get the gift you really want.
Your pre-competition schedule here on TSN will repeat this game tonight, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Also, after this one is done, Sweden and USA, 12:30 Eastern. These 4 teams playing a little interactively for the next couple of days. Finland, USA, and then Canada, Sweden is our doubleheader beginning at 6 a.m. Eastern on Saturday. As we welcome you back to the Canada-Finland special teams scrimmage. Hard to get a feel or rhythm of a game like this. James Duthie and Bob McKenzie. These games are chemistry tests. Who is passing so far for Canada?
Well, we asked the question going in, would Ryan Nugent-Hopkins and Mark Scheifele develop instant chemistry? Mark Scheifele, a center, moved to the right wing. And not much in the first period, but in the second period, an excellent example of it. And a little touch pass there by Scheifele, give and go, and gets it back, and tremendous goal. And that's what Steve Spott and Team Canada are looking for. Nugent-Hopkins really picked up the pace in that period. He was the best Canadian player on the ice, dangerous every time he's got the puck, which is to be expected because his skill level's at another level.
Ridiculous. You heard the guys talking about the fact that Brett Ritchie was not seen through most of the second period. We think we've identified what happened. It was only a couple of minutes into the period. Watch number 20, who will end up going down the middle of the ice on this mini 3-on-2, and then just goes awkwardly, Bob.
Got hit there and then goes down awkwardly, and you see him behind the net, hunched over, did not play another shift after that. Obviously, we don't know exactly what the situation is on Ritchie, but he's not able to play right now, and so they're auditioning other players. I mean, we saw Ryan Strome, who was paired with Ritchie. Those two guys go back to minor hockey together and play on the Niagara Ice Dogs in the Ontario Hockey League. You saw McKinnon move up on that line with Strome and Drouin, and then they tried Lip on there a little bit later. So that's going to be a task. If Ritchie can't play for any reason, for any extended period of time. Now, obviously, Jonathan Huberdeau coming back into the lineup would allow them to go back to a number 1 line of Huberdeau, Nugent-Hopkins, and Scheifele. Ty Ratty, who's up on that number 1 line, might be a natural fit on Strome's right side, along with Drouin on the left side. So we can get ahead of ourselves trying to figure out how long Ritchie's going to be out of the lineup. But we'll just wait to see where that goes.
And of course, everybody watching the goaltending will. Malcolm Subban, I guess it's hard to really evaluate a guy who's given up 2 5-on-3 goals. As Ray mentioned, did not look really good on the second one, but that's not a huge body of work to help you make a decision on your starting goaltender. No, it's not. It's hard to know whether he was screened on that second one or not, but in any case, Malcolm Subban, no chance on the first goal. The other guy that I found interesting in that period was Charles Hudon, the Montreal Canadian prospect who plays for Chicoutimi in the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League. I thought he had a strong period as well. This guy won an opportunity to be on the team because he played so well in the summer camp. I would like to see on that call that was called a penalty, where he scored when the net was moved off. I know you can't call it a goal because the net's too far off, but if the referee can determine in his opinion that it would have been a goal had the net, then give it a penalty shot. If it was a little closer, it would have been. I mean, if the referee can see that the puck is going into the net, even if it's dislodged a little bit ahead of time, he can make that call, but not in that situation. Or at least give it a penalty shot or something. Exactly. I'm trying to change the IHF rules already. The third period is a few minutes away from Finland. Canada and the Finns tied up at 2 right now. That pretty play got the second goal, and it was Reinhart with the first for Canada. Your score between Canada and Finland here on TSN. The second goal of beauty, give, go, get between Ryan Nugent-Hopkins and Mark Scheifele. Nugent-Hopkins now with our Mark Masters.
Ryan, a much different second period than the first. What sort of adjustments did you guys make?
I think the biggest thing for us was we started using our body a lot more. I mean, we're a big team, and We got to use it out there.
You set up Mark on that goal. What sort of chemistry do you feel like you guys have right now?
Yeah, it feels pretty good. I think we've had a couple chances now with Ty and Mark, so I mean, it's all been good so far, and we just want to keep it going.
Thanks, Ryan. Good luck.
All right, thank you.
Remember those concerns about his shoulder coming into Team Canada's camp, but he has looked terrific through the first 40 minutes in this one. Third period just ahead here on TSN. Second period scoring summary brought to you by Molson Canadian, proud sponsor of Hockey Canada. Special teams the difference. 0 for 5 Canada on the power play. The 2 5-on-3 goals for Finland. Here are Gordon Ray.
And some Canadian fans have made the journey, and there are Canadian fans coming to UFA for the World Junior Championship. There's a core of Canadians that go every year, no matter where the tournament's played.
Quite a few parents will be making the trip as well.
Hope they bring their woolies.
Ooh, that's not looking like Miami Beach.
Minus 26 was the high yesterday in UFA. 5-on-5 to open the period, and Mark Scheifele with a shot up high on A2 Laura Kynan.
A nice shot by Scheifele. He drags it close to his feet, changes the angle, and tries to go up over top of Laura Kynan. Using Mata as a little bit of a screen, he goes right through Mata's feet with Nugent Hopkins providing the traffic. But that's a good stop and catch for the Finnish netminder.
Scheifele scored a big goal against the Finns last year in the bronze medal game that broke open what was a 1-0 game early in the second period. Gave Canada some breathing room to a 4-0 win and a bronze medal. The 14th consecutive year that Canada has won a medal at the World Junior Championship. But the talk leading to this tournament is about a gold medal drought that dates back to 2009. Harrington for Ty Ratty. The Portland Winterhawks scoring star who scored 7 times in his last 10 games for Portland before leaving for the Canadian camp. Scheifele. Back to Riley. Off the end boards. Here's Ratty with it. He got spun around there by Altonen. And back in deep it goes for Nugent Hopkins. Ratty. Crisscrossing with Riley. And you see Vanio. Battles for the puck, loses it to Nugent Hopkins' centering pass out of the reach of Scheifele. Shot blocked. Scheifele shoots again. That goes wide. Good pressure by Canada to open the third period.
Well, that's a 90-second shift for this line. That's one thing that they'll want to shorten up, want to tighten up their shifts here as they get towards the tournament.
And off the bench came Strome with a good chance in tight. And finally the remnants of that line make their way off. It's a Phil Esposito shift.
There's an old line about strapping the oxygen tanks on, and that line had them on 90 seconds, as I say, is much, much too long. Got to be closer to 40 seconds.
Hamilton's pass chipped ahead, so icing waved off as Esso Lindell goes back for it. And Nate McKinnon got spun around.
So now they're back to McKinnon and Drouin flanking Ryan Strome on this line.
Salamaki plays that back for Lindbaum. His shot goes wide. And now Armia with it. Across he goes to Granlund, centering pass, flutters down in front. And Griffin Reinhart cleans that up. Nate McKinnon. Pass in the middle for Drouin, got knocked away from him. And Salamaki plays it out. Reinhart to Murphy. And Ryan Murphy, a little razzle-dazzle at the blue line, almost collided with a teammate and has to retreat to pick up the loose puck. Lipon collides there with Valkonen. And Yudon looking for it. The puck knocked away from him. And it slides by Boone Jenner and out to center ice. Coming up after this, we'll have the United States against the Swedes. Canada will close out this pre-tournament competition against the Swedes on Saturday in the morning, Canadian time. Lambert battles for it and leaves it there for Miro Aaltonen. Aaltonen hasn't been drafted yet. He's gone through 2 NHL drafts. Had a strong tournament last year for the Finns. Lipon. Battling there with Olli Mata, who takes him in hard. And the puck is picked up by Salminen. Again, the Finns are resting some of their top guns for this game, including Alexander Barkov, who had a breakout tournament last year.
As well as a draft-eligible defenseman who was terrific last year, Rasmus Ristolainen.
Centering pass for Aaltonen, he flipped that wide. Now a loose puck in front, knocked away for the moment by Philip Deneau. And it's brought out by McKinnon. Centering pass there, just missed Deneau. And Philip Deneau of Victoriaville, the Quebec Major Junior League, who was cut last year in the final cuts of the selection camp, flips that back out to center ice. Teravainen on it for the Finns. And this might be the longest stretch of 5-on-5 hockey we've seen since the first period. And again, this is sort of big ice hockey. The NHL sheet is 200 by 85. In Finland, it's 200 by about 93. International is 200 by 100. Granlund flips that around. Armia looking for it.
This is by far the Finns' best line with Armia, Granlund, Salamäki together. All three of them returnees from last year. Salamäki in his third tournament, as is Armia.
Scheifele lost his helmet, and under international rules, you have to leave the ice surface immediately, so he goes to the bench. And jumping on is Lepon with Ratty and Nugent Hopkins. And that pass goes off a stick, up and out of play.
Well, the game's certainly spread out here. There's been no concerted pressure. Here's a little earlier on the high stick of Nugent Hopkins on Salmelainen. It's a little bit of an ice bag to a high stick to the neck just underneath the shield.
Off the draw. Shot taken by Thomas Nykop.
One of the few draws Canada hasn't won. They've been dominant in the face-off circle. And
here's Gordon Stube in the middle, the head of NHL Central Scouting European Bureau. And there'll be tons of scouts at this year's World Junior. A high number of eligible draft picks in this World Junior. Quite often teams don't take 17-year-olds, but there'll be a ton of them here. Including number 29 for Canada, Jonathan Drouin.
Canada felt that he left them no choice but to take him, that his age just became a number. He was so dynamic a player, has been so dynamic a player. And you could see at the selection camp as the days wore on, he started to become more comfortable, and you could really see the creative slant he plays the game with.
To give you a sense of how unusual it is, Canada has 2 draft-eligible players, underage players on this team. First time since 2009 when Ryan Ellis and Evander Kane were named to Team Canada, and Kane was initially cut from that team and added when Canada had to make an injury replacement. And here's Drouin with it. Headers that back for Strome. And Lipon is out there as well. JC Lipon. Spins and fires that well wide of the goal. 7 minutes gone here in the third period in a 2-2 game. Finns led 1-0 after 1. Both their goals have been scored on 5-on-3s. Both of Canada's goals scored at even strength. And a bouncy puck in the slot. Fired, score! Miro Aaltonen gathers it up and fires it home, and the Finns lead again.
Gord, you mentioned just a few minutes ago how effective Aaltonen was in the tournament last year. He's a good skater. He's very versatile. Plays a couple of different forward positions, and left shot coming off the right circle. Subban gets squared up to the shot, and he just doesn't catch it. This is a little bit of a broken play here, but you're going to see Aaltonen come in late, and this shot just beats Subban clean on the glove side. And if there were questions about the goaltending in Canada, this has not solved any of them, as Malcolm Subban has had not a terrific evening in Finland. He gives up his third one. And one that he would probably want back. Weatherspoon gets caught a little bit deep on the play that allows Aaltonen room to shoot the puck, but again, that's one Subban probably would want back.
Canada has 3 goaltenders in camp as the IHF has gone to the World Championship rules for goaltenders. Each team may bring 3, but the third goaltender may only play if there's an injury. Jake Patterson figures to be Canada's third goaltender as it stands right now. So the Finns back with the lead and their first even strength goal in this hockey game. Ratty drops it back to Riley with a shot, and the save is made by Laura Kainen. Udon looks down to Ratty. He's out there now with Udon and Boone Jenner.
And I think it's important to remember here, this is a pre-tournament game. That, there's no panic to this yet. There is evaluation. So Ratty, who's had an effective game with Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, gets a shift with a different type of center in Boone Jenner.
Nate McKinnon aggressively pursuing the puck, and that's his trademark. From Cole Harbour, Nova Scotia, also went to Shattuck St. Mary's Prep School. And then the Quebec Major Junior League, the exact same path of Sidney Crosby, who's also from Cole Harbour, but very different player. And McKinnon is the first to explain to people that he's not like number 87. Although in some ways, in terms of tenacity, he's very much like it.
Well, as I talked about Drouin showing his confidence as the camp went on and we saw more creative with the puck, I thought we saw a much more forceful McKinnon as well.
Puck stripped away by Teravainen, walks in and shoots. That goes high and wide. Chance the other way for Kamara. Anthony Kamara tied up by 3 Finns in the corner. And Teravainen back for it.
So Ratty back out with Nugent-Hopkins. That's 2 of the last 3 shifts that Ty Ratty's been on the ice. Scheifele, of course, is on the other side.
Reinhardt steps up, flips that backhand, but Canada had to tag up to get back on side. Aaltonen chips that ahead, battles there with Ryan Murphy in the corner. And Aaltonen came up with the puck. Flips it along the wall, now moved ahead quickly by Kamara. And a bouncing puck gets to Reinhardt. Steps away from Aaltonen. And the Finns will fire it right back in. Past the midway point of the third period, Finland leading Canada 3-2 in this first of 2 pre-competition games for Canada, prior to leaving for Ufa, Russia, and the start of the 2013 tournament on Boxing Day. Järvelainen. He tied the game in the second period for the Finns, had that knocked down. Scheifele across the line. He's taken down, bouncing puck in front. Strome can't get to it. And Nightcop plays it ahead for the Finns. And the puck slides down to Subban. He'll hang on, and we'll be back after this. Gord Miller, Ray Ferraro, Mark Masters with pre-tournament action between Canada and Finland. Bob McKenzie and James Duffy back in the studio, keeping you up to date on all the news. And what these teams heading to the World Junior fear most is big news for North America about the work stoppage. Should the NHL lockout be settled, a number of these teams could find themselves scrambling for players. There's a shot from Mikko Väinänen, and that goes wide. And perhaps no team more than Canada. NHL teams declared junior age players that could be called up as Armia comes in, drops it back, and a great save by Subban, point blank, as he turns away Granlund. And now the puck on top of the net, and play is called.
What a piece of stick handling by Joel Armia. We've seen this 3 or 4 times as he walks Morgan Riley, and then Hamilton, who is beaten up the ice, is a little slow to get back. Subban makes 2 really, really difficult saves. The first one right here, point blank, and then the rebound, Subban holds his ground. The first one on Granlund, the second one on Salamaki, and Subban keeps the score keeps the score at 3-2.
Now a centering pass and the shot fired wide by Juuso Ikonen. Aaltonen was all teed up for the one-timer, but the long shot drifts down and Subban will hang on. So just to finish the thought, NHL teams at the start of the year declared junior age players would be eligible to return to a training camp once the lockout ends, and nearly half of Canada's roster is listed. Players, of course, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins is an NHL player, but people like Dougie Hamilton and Ryan Strome, Scheifele, and others are all on that list.
Boone Jenner in Columbus. But let's be honest, nobody really knows what the rules are if the league does come back, and it throws everything up in the air.
Udon almost broken away there for Canada. And now McKinnon on the forecheck. Had that knocked away by Lorikainen. Back in is Granlund. Got that back for Armia. That was knocked away from him. And now Udon back the other way. Got squeezed there by Lindell. 8 to go in the third period. Finns lead 3-2. And Subban deflected that up and out of play, and we'll be back with more in a moment. Canada-Finland from Vantaa, just north of Helsinki, and the Finns leading by a score of 3-2 as Steve Spott looks on, the head coach of the Kitchener Rangers of the Ontario Hockey League. Spott had 3 of these Canadian players at the Summer Under-18 Championship in 2011. Morgan Riley, Griffin Reinhart, and Charles Hudon were all in that club as that shot goes high, knocked down by Subban. At this year's selection camp, Spott and the coaching staff released 5 other players who had been members of that 2011 Summer Under-18 team. There are 2 Under-18 championships, one played in the summer when Canada can send its top players, the other, the IHF version, is played in the spring, and a number of countries can't send their top players because they're still active in the Canadian Hockey League playoffs. Ratty looks for Scheifele. Now Murphy back for Riley. So 2 offensive defensemen out there for Canada. Morgan Riley centers it, and the pass is knocked down by Leno. Up for Teravainen. And back to pick it up is Salminen. Nugent-Hopkins with it, slides it across to Murphy. Ryan Murphy and Morgan Riley. 2 high-end, high-risk defensemen out there for Canada. And Riley knocks it down at the Canadian line. Looks through the middle for Drouin. That was knocked away. Now the play's offside at the Canadian line as Salminen touched it.
A couple of Canada's better chances today have come from defensemen. We saw the goal by Griffin Reinhart, who followed up the ice, and in this period, Riley got into what was a 3-on-3 rush, and he made it a 4-on-3 rush. And the strength of Morgan Riley and Ryan Murphy has to be joining the rush, getting themselves into a 3-on-3 spot and making it a man advantage break.
By the way, they call that intentional offside, so the faceoff comes all the way back down to the finish zone. And Strome out there with Lippon. And again, Brett Ritchie shaken up in the second period. Still no report on his condition. But Ritchie and Strome expected to play together in the tournament, as they do in Niagara in the Ontario Hockey League, where they likely form the most lethal duo in all of junior hockey. Lippon down for Strome. Jonathan Drouin out there as well. Centering pass for Strome. His shot goes off the leg. Xavier Ouellette, his shot was blocked as well. Lippon. Back down to Strome. Under 6 to go in the third period. Drouin falls. And now Lippon battles for the loose puck. Here's Strome with it. And it slide away, and the Finns break out. Here's Granlund. Slides it down, and the pass knocked away by Harrington. And on it now is Nykop. He's taken down, and a penalty will be called against Canada with less than 5 minutes to go. In the third period, Xavier Ouellette will go off.
After 0 penalties through the first 16 minutes or so of this third period, there's the cross check from Ouellette. If he gets up closer to him, it's not a cross check. The ref won't call it, but because you extend your arms and he can see your arms extending, you're going to get called most every time. So now Canada has to kill here against the Finnish power play that scored twice, although they've been both 5-on-3 goals, and the Finns will start with that top line.
Jenner wins the draw. Reinhardt plays it around, and it's fired down the ice. Olli Mata, who figures to play a central role for the Finns in the tournament. He'll anchor the power play and has it now. In his third year with the London Knights, a first-round pick of the Pittsburgh Penguins. And there's a centering pass to Mata, who chipped it just wide.
The Penguins have Scott Harrington as well, a second-round draft choice in this tournament.
Here's Mata with it. Long wrist shot, and Subban got just enough of that to knock it wide. Mata plays that to an open wing, and once again Järvelainen playing the point of the power play for the Finns. For the 5-on-3 goal. In the second period, Mata knocks it off the side of the goal. Spins, gets it back, a backhand shot, and he's turned away by Subban, and Mata knocked down at the end of the play.
Mata, known as more of a defender, makes a decent first pass out of the zone. You mentioned a first rounder by Pittsburgh in the last draft, and here he makes a nice little toe drag move on Griffin Reinhart, but Subban is able to hold his ground and make the save.
Malcolm Subban took up goaltending at the age of 11 and was an 11th round pick by the Belleville Bulls of the Ontario Hockey League in a move that was widely seen as a favor to the Subban family because his brother PK was playing there. Well, guess what? He earned his spot. He's a first-round pick of the Boston Bruins. 30 seconds to go in the Finnish power play, 4 to go in the third period. The Finns nursing a 1-goal lead. Teravainen plays that rink wide, drop back to Vainio. Look down for Aaltonen. And here's Aaltonen with it. Teravainen. Riikola. Played it across, and Vainio couldn't pull the trigger. And now short-handed. In comes Strome with a shot. Stopped by Laurikainen. 5-on-5 now, 3.5 to go in the third period. And a Finnish player brought down, and there is no penalty on the play as Nugent Hopkins tapped the puck back, and Ryan Murphy now gets a chance. Here comes Murphy in across the line. And that puck is swept away by Lindblom. Now stolen, in comes Scheifele. Drops it back to the slot. Murphy spun around but lost the puck, and now Nugent Hopkins. Here's Murphy with a chance. His shot was blocked. And the man who blocked it, Thomas Nykop, up slowly.
Murphy can really shoot it. He took the pass from Nugent Hopkins. It was on the tee, and you see Nykop hobble his way to the bench.
Now Murphy being shadowed there by Armia. Steps around him but lost the puck as Salamaki has it and fires it back in deep. And Murphy still out there. His pass was off the back of the net. And Nugent Hopkins has to retreat to pick it up, now turns it over to Armia. Nugent Hopkins falls, and the puck to the open wing to Scheifele, but racing up to keep it alive was Valkonen for the Finns. And Yunnan plays it out to center ice, but once again fired right back down to the Canadian zone. And now we've got a slashing penalty being called to Canada with 2 minutes to go in the third period. And it'll be Nugent Hopkins who goes off.
Behind the play, Nugent Hopkins gets nailed for slashing, and this has not been a terrific first start for the Canadians in regards to discipline. They've taken far too many penalties, in particular in the first and second period, but have taken the only 2 here in the third period. Farther up the boards, Nugent Hopkins will end up taking a slashing penalty right in front of the Canadian bench. And so now with just over 2 minutes left, Canada has to kill and at some point try and find a way to get the equalizer.
And Mata once again out there for the Finns. Plays the power play, kills penalties, and leaves it there for Armia. Lies in the corner with Harrington, but Armia back on it. And Armia keeps up the battle with Harrington and wins it for the puck. Armia centering pass just swept away from Lindblom.
Another Canadian penalty coming up.
And a centering pass knocked away by Subban. And Mata with a shot that goes wide, Lindblom with it. Plays it down to Salamaki. Shoveled across to Armia. Minutes to go in the third period. Finns on the power play with another one coming. And Canada can't gain possession. Here's Mata. Fires it down. And now finally, Teravainen can't hold it, and as Ryan Strome touches up, Canada will end this game with another penalty.
Time to regroup. A day off between the next pre-tournament game against the Swedes on Saturday. But clearly staying out of the penalty box is job one for Canada. They'll get Jonathan Huberdeau back. So now Strome joins Harrington and Nugent Hopkins in the box.
There may be a misconduct here. So with 40 seconds to go, it's a 2-man advantage for the Finns, who have scored twice on 5-on-3s. And here's Armia with it. Knocked away from him by Hamilton. And Dougie Hamilton brings it in, drops it back, and Lippon with a shot that goes high. And out of play with 12 seconds to go, and now Salamaki gets tangled up there. He and JC Lippon collide.
Lippon is a feisty player, plays in Kamloops. You mentioned Gordy's been through the draft a couple of times, having a terrific year there. But he's a bit of an agitator.
By the way, the penalties, it's not a misconduct. It's 2 minors, one to Harrington for roughing and one to Strome for cross-checking.
There's one of the penalties to Harrington. But with just a dozen seconds left, Canada's out of time here.
And now Lippon has obviously received a penalty, so he is sent off.
I thought Lippon was effective in this game. on the puck, forechecked pretty well. I thought Hudon had a good evening as well. But just too many penalties for Canada, too disjointed the game became for them.
And the final seconds now, the third period. And Finland, without many of its top players in the lineup, beats Canada by a score of 3-2, thanks to a pair of goals on 5-on-3s. And Miro Eltonen, who fired one by Malcolm Subban. And you can see Steve Spott shaking his head on the Canadian bench after a parade in the penalty box. And we will have player of the game presentations, as is the custom in international hockey. Pre-tournament, so small trophy. You don't get the real good trophy until you get to the main tournament. Ryan Murphy selected as Canada's top player. And Joel Armia, who plays for Asat Pori in the Finnish Elite League, is named their top player.
If he plays in the tournament like that, that is going to be a dominant player. I cannot believe the difference from last year to this in the effort level and commitment of Joel Armia.
Finns win 3-2. Canada wraps up the pre-tournament with a game against the Swedes on Saturday. Back with more after this.
The 2013 IIHF World Junior Hockey Championship pre-competition is brought to you by the proud premier sponsors of Hockey Canada. Imperial Oil, our Esso Smart gasoline works harder for you. Think clean. By RBC. RBC Play Hockey, providing all Canadians an opportunity to play the game. By Nike, providing Team Canada with the best in fitness training products. And by TELUS, proud telecommunications partner of Hockey Canada. The 2013 IIHF World Junior Hockey Championship pre-competition is brought to you by Chevrolet and by Molson Canadian, proud sponsor of Hockey Canada.
Miro Eltonen with the game winner and the lone goal of the third period as Finland beats Canada 3-2 in our first pre-tournament game leading up to the 2013 World Junior Hockey Tournament. James Duthie and Bob McKenzie back with you. Just a reminder, we're going to stay with you extended post-game for the next 40 minutes. Then we're going to bring you Sweden and USA at 12:30 Eastern Time. So undisciplined, pretty sloppy, pretty lethargic start for Canada.
An awful lot for Coach Steve Spott to work with.
Let's start with the positive, though. What did you like?
Well, I think the play of the first line, the offensive line for Team Canada, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins in particular, best offensive player on the ice for Team Canada, started to develop chemistry with Mark Scheifele. We were wondering about that. That was one of the questions we asked in the pregame. And, the first period, the power play was okay, but Ryan Nugent-Hopkins really cranked it up in the second period. He and Scheifele got some good chemistry. Ty Ratty was the third member of that line. Jonathan Huberdeau will go into that spot once his suspension expires and he's able to play against Sweden. But overall, I thought Nugent-Hopkins, that's the positive for Team Canada. They have a legitimate number one offensive line, and Scheifele and Nugent-Hopkins showed some good chemistry, so that's +1.
There were some soft calls on both sides, but I think Rayngord said it, the fact that you have to know coming to this tournament it's going to be officiated a slightly different way. So doesn't Canada need to get slapped a little bit on that?
Absolutely, and they've certainly got to be more disciplined than they were. That said, some of the calls were embarrassingly bad, and the refereeing, I thought, was more or less atrocious at a lot of the time. But a lot of the penalties were deserved, like that one to Dougie Hamilton, like that one to Ty Ratty. That was a slash. you get a stick up on a guy, that's a penalty. And if you keep taking penalties and you get yourself in 5-on-3 situations, that, by the way, wasn't a penalty, but you get into 5-on-3 situations on repeated occasions against guys that can shoot the puck like these guys can for Finland, Granlund, and that, you're going to get burned. So absolutely, one of the major takeaways for Team Canada will be more discipline, although even by sensitive international officiating standards, there were a lot of head shakers in that one.
Yeah, both ways, against the Finns as well. The lines were already a little bit messed up simply because Jonathan Huberdeau was out because of the suspension, the 4-game suspension that he was given just before the camp started. His team will play the last game, St. John, tonight, so he'll be eligible for the game against Sweden on Saturday. But Ritchie goes down early in the second period of this one. We'll see the injury. If it's significant in any way, we didn't see him again, what will that do to Team Canada? What will be the impact?
Well, that's a good question. You'll see there's Ritchie in the middle, driving, goes down a little bit awkwardly. His right knee goes down, then his left, and then you can see him hunched over as he heads off the ice. And you're right, James. If you look at the big picture of this game for a moment, I mean, the first line was very good. But the second line, Ryan Strome and Ritchie was originally lining up on his right wing because they've had chemistry dating back to their minor midget days with the Toronto Marlies in Toronto, and as well as playing together on the Niagara Ice Dogs. That's a natural fit there. So if Ritchie can't go there, then they're auditioning a bunch of other people. We saw Nate McKinnon up there with Jonathan Drouin as a possible second line. The big picture thing that I didn't like about the way Team Canada played today was that their first line gave a good offensive push. I didn't see any offensive push whatsoever from Ryan Strome's line, whoever was playing there. And I didn't see Boone Jenner and Philip Deneau, two real good centers that have an ability to dominate games physically. I didn't see any physical play or push from the third and fourth lines in that regard. So outside of the top line being really good, they're going to have to get the report on Ritchie to find out what happens there.
You asked some questions before the game, key questions for Canada going into this tournament about Malcolm Subban, about Morgan Rielly on the top pairing with Dougie Hamilton. I want to get your take on those, but first let's hear from the coach who has a lot to look at from his first pre-tournament game, Steve Spott with Mark Masters.
Coach, with all that power play penalty kill time, how much of an evaluation were you able to make?
Well, we got some teaching clips, Mark. There's no doubt about that. But ultimately, the two areas of concern for us tonight obviously was discipline. That's first and foremost. And secondly, our ability to generate offense. And, we've got to do a better job of getting pucks over the blue line and not turning pucks over. So, those are lessons learned. And ultimately, we've got to be better in both those areas.
Was this a good lesson on what to expect from the officiating in the World Juniors?
Well, it is. We saw some of it this summer in Russia. We definitely saw it here tonight. And anytime you get a stick up against somebody, they're going to call it. So our players have to get used to that standard, and they've got to stay mentally tougher than what we were tonight, because ultimately, specialty teams are so important this time of year in a tournament like this.
Scheifele scored from Nugent Hopkins, but in general, how did you feel he played on the wing?
I thought Mark did a good job. I did. I thought both those guys played hard, and obviously you can see their ability to find each other out on the ice. And ultimately though, we've got to find more lines. Obviously with Hubie out and with Brett Ritchie going out, that hurt us a little bit with depth. But ultimately, like I said, we've got to get more lines going. And we turned over a lot of pucks tonight. That's something we've got to be careful of.
What happened to Brett? Did you see it?
Yeah, I just thought it was body contact. He's going to be okay. They kept him out for precautionary reasons, but he'll be okay.
How did you feel Ty Ratty did filling in on that top unit for Jonathan?
He did okay, but again, I think with the amount of penalties that we took, it took away from our 5-on-5 ability to create offense because we had too many players sitting on the bench. So, we definitely have to address it. We will, and make sure that our next game that we're a lot smarter when it comes to our discipline.
Two 17-year-olds obviously getting the first taste of game action against another country. How did you feel they held up?
I thought they both did great. I thought Nathan was hard on the puck. He was physical, and I thought Jonathan made some real good plays as well. So I thought both those boys played hard.
Malcolm, 2 of the 3 goals came with you guys down 2 men. How did you see his game?
Good. Obviously those 5-on-3s, they put your goaltender in a tough situation. But ultimately, I thought it was a good test for him, and obviously we'll come back now with Jordan Binnington, and the battle will continue. But ultimately, when you go down 3-on-5, you're putting your goaltender in a tough spot.
Thanks, Coach. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Mark.
Okay, the biggest positive out of all that is that he says Brett Ritchie's going to be okay and was just held out for precautionary reasons. He touched on the 2 things you did, the discipline, the lack of offense created by what is supposed to be a dream team for Canada. Let's talk about those things that you asked about before the game. And we'll start with the goaltending. Malcolm Subban, again, 2 5-on-3 goals, but 2 rather weak goals. Jamie McLennan will be here and do a full evaluation on the goaltending, but what were your thoughts?
Well, certainly the game-winning goal. I mean, 2 5-on-3 goals, no chance on the first one whatsoever. The second one may or may not have been screened. But there's a high degree of sensitivity on that goal in particular. It's very similar to the goal that he gave up in the selection camp against the University Stars last week. And I say there's a high degree of sensitivity with the Canadian goaltending because in each of the last 3 years when Canada hasn't been able to win gold, at crucial moments, the goaltending hasn't been awful from post to post, stem to stern. At crucial moments, it's broken down, and Canada has given up some goals that they say in the vernacular the goalie would like to have back. And that was one of those for Malcolm Subban. So there is a high degree of sensitivity. Canada's goaltending probably needs to be better. Anytime they've played in Europe, the goaltender has been a star for the team. Anytime they've won in Europe, rather, a gold medal at the World Junior Championship, the goaltender has been a star. And so now Jordan Binnington will get his chance against the Swedes. But just a so-so effort for Malcolm Subban. And
that stat you mentioned is glaring. 8 times Canada has won gold overseas at the World Juniors. In all 8 of those tournaments, Canada's goaltender has been named the best goalie in the tournament. The other question you asked, and the pair you were watching before this game was the first pairing. Could Morgan Rielly fit in well on that first pairing on D with Dougie Hamilton? Your evaluation there?
I think the jury's out a little bit. We didn't see a lot of 5-on-5 play, so it's hard to know. And Morgan Rielly is a gifted player. I'm really impressed with this Toronto Maple Leaf first rounder, especially when he's got the puck. But we saw an example in the third period where he and Dougie Hamilton kind of got schooled there by Joel Armia. A terrific game. The Buffalo Sabre first rounder for the Finns, in a real good opportunity where they kind of got broken down there. And it was a little bit of an odd man rush, so it's difficult to pin too much blame. But of the 3 things we talked about before the game, would Nugent Hopkins and Scheifele have chemistry? Yes, they would. Would Malcolm Subban play like a number 1 goaltender with a stalwart effort? No, probably not. That didn't materialize today. And can Rielly play solid enough defense on the first pair with Dougie Hamilton? Jury's a little bit out on that one still.
You praised Nugent Hopkins and Scheifele, as did Coach Steve Spott. Anybody else you liked today amongst the group?
Wasn't a lot of guys, especially offensively, but I thought Charles Hudon, the Montreal Canadian prospect who plays for Chicoutimi in the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League, thought he had a pretty decent day. Odd man rush. This one, the shot gets blocked, but he was trying to create something offensively there. Comes back 2-on-1, gets the puck over, and an opportunity there for Team Canada that led to the goal. And that was good. And then this was a terrific play by Hudon. And only the Finnish defenseman knocking the net off the moorings prevented that from being a goal. And maybe we would have been talking a lot more about Charles Hudon. Hudon played exceptional in the summer games against the Russians. They played 4 games, 2 in Russia, 2 in Halifax. And Hudon effectively secured a spot on the team by playing as well as he did in those games. He didn't have to try out last week. He was one of those guys sitting up in the press box and that's another factor we should point out for Team Canada today. The core of this hockey team, the high-end guys, the Scheifeles, the Nugent Hopkins, Strome, Dougie Hamilton, Hudon, Jenner and Danault to a lesser extent because they each played in 1 game last week. But these guys haven't played an actual game of hockey for almost, in some cases, almost 2 weeks, 10, 11 days. So
is that a mistake then, though? Should they have found a way to get those guys in? Or
no, because they had to have the evaluation. It's a shorter camp. And big picture, it is a little bit of a concern. It's funny how things go here. Years ago, I used to worry that Team Canada was getting too beat up in its evaluation process, that by the time they got to these games, these kids were exhausted, they were worn down, they just finished Subway Series games, they just finished all their junior games.
They'd try to kill each other to make the team, basically.
They would, but trying to beat each other up to get on that team was something that might have given that pressure-treated resiliency, and maybe that's absent right now. And I don't know how far that carries over and how big an excuse it is, but I'll tell you what, the week last week was nearly not the test that they've had in the past. The
other thing, the last 4 years, the tournament's been in North America, and you've come out to these pumped crowds, even when it's been in the States and Buffalo, all Canadian crowds, even for these pre-tournament games. You wouldn't think it would be trouble getting up for this game, but a little bit of a different atmosphere over in Finland than you'd see in Canada or in a place like Buffalo. You heard Steve Spott say he was pretty pleased with Nate McKinnon's first game. Let's hear from Nate McKinnon with Mark Masters.
Nate, what was that like for you?
Different for sure. Definitely an adjustment coming in here. You know, it's a different game over in Europe for sure, and you know, I think we put a solid game. You know, we got to be a little more disciplined, but overall, you know, a lot of good things from it.
You mentioned a different game. Where do you sense frustration on the bench with how it was being officiated?
Yeah, sure. I mean, anywhere you don't want to take that many penalties, and you know, it's never fun. You know, being on the penalty kill the whole time, and you know, we'll regroup from it, and you know, we got to get adjusted to this type of officiating for sure.
You got a chance to jump up on the second line for a bit there when Rich went out. Did it feel like old times with Jonathan there?
Yeah, it felt good. You know, playing with those two guys, they're very skilled, and it's only a few shifts, but I mean, any of these guys is a lot of fun, and especially with Jonathan, it's always good to get back with him.
Thanks, Nate. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Again, we're about 25 minutes away from USA and Sweden, and if you missed this game, if you're just waking up or tuning us in now, it'll be replayed tonight on TSN. Jamie McLennan with his evaluation of the goaltending next. Your game story is brought to you by Molson Canadian, proud sponsor of Hockey Canada. Aaltonen with the winner in the third. Those two 5-on-3 goals against Canada hurt early. They looked really good at the start of the second when Griffin Reinhart and Mark Scheifele scored 2 goals in 36 seconds, but really faded after that. And again, Brett Ritchie goes down early in the second, but according to Steve Spott, the head coach, he was only held out for precautionary reasons, and he should be okay. Let's hear from Mark Scheifele, one of the goal scorers with Mark Masters.
Mark, a lot of special teams work today. Were you able to get into the rhythm that you want to be in with Ryan and on that top line?
Well, you know, I think we found a little bit of chemistry. You know, we had a lot of O-zone plays. We had a lot of chances, and you know, we buried on one. So, you know, I think we're starting to find that chemistry a little bit, and you know, I definitely felt like you know, me and him connected in that game, and you know, I think if there was a little more 5-on-5 shifts, that would have helped the chemistry a little more. But you know, we'll just look to build for the rest of the week.
In general, comfortable on the wing?
Yeah, you know, I'm totally comfortable playing with Nuge. You know, me and him are you know, talking the whole game. You know, trying to help each other, and you know, I'm just trying to, you know, find openings for him. You know, he's a great player, and you know, he can always find you. So, you know, I just want to find those open spots, those open areas, and you know, bury when I get the chance.
How good did it feel on that goal? Because he found you with the beauty pass, and then you connected. Is that sort of what we can expect moving forward?
Yeah, definitely. I think that's you know, a big thing that you can expect. Like, you know, me and him are you know, finding those spots, and we're talking a lot. And you know, I told him, like, I'm just going to go to the net. I'm going to find those open areas, and I'm going to bury when you give them to me. So you know, he likes that, and he's you know, he's just going to keep. We're just going to keep on working together to, you know, get better and better. And I think it'll come playing more and more.
I guess the big question is now, one pre-tournament game to go. You'll get Jonathan Huberdeau back for that. How close are you to feeling where you want to be heading into the tournament?
You know, I think a few more practices in that game will definitely help a lot. And you know, it's just pre-tournament. We're just trying to get a, you know, a sense for how we're feeling. You know, get our systems down, and you know, if we have a good practice tomorrow and a good game against Sweden, then be totally ready. So you know, I think with a few more practices, we'll be good.
Was there frustration on the bench with how this game was being officiated?
You know, obviously there's frustration with it, but you know, I think for the most part, you know, we got to stay disciplined there, and you know, that's the biggest thing. You know, we have to stay disciplined, and we took some bad penalties, but you know, we've talked about it, and we're ready to take it on for the next game.
Thanks, Mark. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
One of the factors for Canada, if they were rattled by Mark Masters' furry microphone, which is like getting a squirrel stuck in your face during the intermissions and after the game. Here's Jamie McLennan with Post to Post. He'll be evaluating the goaltending for Canada throughout this tournament. A couple of softies. What's your take on Malcolm Subban's performance?
He does not look comfortable whatsoever, and that's not the Malcolm Subban that I know from Belleville. He's an aggressive goaltender. He's a guy that likes to get in your face, use his lateral movement, but here, obviously, it's a 5-on-3 goal. You got to give him a little bit of a pass here. He's trying to find that puck through, but it's a short side goal, and as a goaltender, you always know that you cannot give up those deflating short side goals. And talk about deflating short side goals, Aaltonen's right here. May come through a touch of a screen, but again, he looks uncomfortable trying to force it. This is not the Malcolm Subban that I know and like, especially this is a first rounder for the Boston Bruins. Steve Spott has to be concerned a little bit about his presumptuous #1 goaltender.
Well, he was clearly the favorite heading into the camp, and you can tell that by the fact he was probably the worst goalie at the camp and still got the starting job for this game. Now, Jordan Binnington, we assume, would play the next pre-tournament game against Sweden on Saturday. After this performance by Subban, Do you think Binnington now has a chance to win that starting job if he has a good game?
Absolutely. He plays with a lot of poise. He's a big guy, very structured in net, and if he has a very strong game, I would look for him to maybe take that #1 spot.
All right, post to post with Jamie McLennan. Let's check in with another Canadian player, Ty Ratty, with Mark Masters.
All right, Ty, you knew this was an opportunity, jumping up on the first line with Jonathan out. How do you feel you fared?
I felt good. I think obviously it was a different game and a lot of penalties, a lot of 5-on-4 opportunities, but we played good as a team. We were happy with our game, just got to cut down the penalties.
Was this, you think, maybe a good lesson for the team about how the games might be officiated at the World Juniors?
Yeah, it was huge. You can't use your sticks at all here, especially on international tournaments, and we talked about that after the game, and that's going to be a big thing for us moving forward, but we know we'll be fine.
Did you sense any frustration on the bench with the penalties, as they built up through the game?
A little bit. It kills the flow a little bit, all those penalties, but that falls on us. That's a lot of undisciplined penalties on our part, and like I said, it'll change.
Playing on that first line, what did you see from Mark Scheifele? So much attention on him, moving to the wing. How do you think he looked from your vantage point?
He was good. He was obviously really good. A great goal, and he's good in his defensive zone. So it was very easy playing with those two, and it makes the game that much more easy.
One pre-tournament game to go. How close are you to feeling ready for this tournament?
A couple practices, one more game, and we'll be fine. I'll be fine personally, and like I said, we're happy with the guys we have in the room, and we know we'll be ready to go.
All right, thanks, Ty.
Thanks, Mark.
More post-game coverage ahead. James Duffy back with Bob McKenzie. Last night we unveiled the top 40 greatest Canadian players in World Junior history. Now, these are not the guys who went on to be the best NHL players. These were the guys who shone brightest at the World Juniors. We don't have time to go over the entire top 40. You can catch that on tsn.ca. But here again, your top 10.
Number 10, Jimmy Waite. The Sherbrooke, Quebec native holds the record for most wins by a Canadian goalie. None of the 9 victories stands out like a 38-save gold medal clinching win over the USSR in 1988.
Jimmy Waite was sensational.
Number 9, Patrice Bergeron. Ancienne Lorette, Quebec watched its most famous offspring shine brightest on the best Team Canada ever as the consummate center won 2005 tournament MVP honors.
Patrice Bergeron, flash and dash.
Number 8, Jonathan Toews. The double gold medal winner from Winnipeg was so much more than a shootout specialist, but he was immortalized as a result of 3 pressure-packed shootout goals against the USA in 2007.
This guy is unbelievable.
Number 7, Ryan Ellis. The all-time World Junior Championship career leader in defenseman assists was a power play dynamo, representing Hamilton with distinction over 3 tournaments.
For Ryan Ellis, his skill level is so high.
Number 6, John Tavares. 8 goals in 6 games, including 3 in a New Year's Eve Classic against the USA, propelled the Mississauga, Ontario junior phenom to the 2009 Tournament MVP Award.
The John Tavares Show lives on.
Number 5, Manny Legacy. 58 saves versus Finland December 30th, 1993, provided the backbone for gold and placed the Toronto native among the greatest single-game performers in Team Canada history.
Manny Legacy continues to be the main man.
Number 4, Jason Allison. The peerless playmaker from Toronto was first in tournament assists and points in '95 to complete a sensational 2 years of nothing but gold.
This is classic Jason Allison.
Number 3, Wayne Gretzky. Leading the 1978 tournament as a 16-year-old in goals, assists, and points, announced to the hockey world at large what Canada already knew, that the kid from Brantford, Ontario, was about to embark on hockey's greatest career.
Here's a 16-year-old hockey player that's got the brains of a 30-year-old pro.
Number 2, Eric Lindros. The London, Ontario native and massive impact player made his presence felt every which way over 3 tournaments, winning 2 gold medals and scoring a Team Canada career record 31 points.
Watch what Eric Lindros does.
Including 17 in a 1991 Tour de Force. Number 1, Jordan Eberle. Nothing says more about a player than his ability to produce under pressure. And it can be said that Regina produced the greatest pressure performer in Team Canada history at the World Juniors. That he scored a team record 14 goals is one thing. that he scored them at the most important moments puts him in a class all by himself.
Should tell you 25 experts from across Canada voted on this list. Jordan Eberle was #1 on 12 of the 25 ballots, including mine, including Bob McKenzie's. What made the difference to put Eberle on top for you?
Yeah, you know, it was really difficult because what Wayne Gretzky did as a 16-year-old in 1978 was truly incredible. But you know what? For as much as Jordan Eberle gets talked about that magnificent goal that he got against the Russians, the most dramatic possible ending to a hockey game you could imagine, in a game that Canada probably could have and should have lost, it was in the next year, that game against the Americans in the gold medal game in Saskatoon, where the dime dropped for me as I was watching it. He scored 2 goals late in the third period. Both times Canada was trailing by a goal to the Americans. He scores, they tie it up. Americans go ahead. Jordan Eberle scores again, he ties it up. Late in the game, in overtime, he had chances to win the game. And as I was watching the overtime, sitting in the game watching with you, James, in Saskatoon, I just started to get this feeling that this one player was doing something incredible. He was the most clutch performance that I'd ever seen from anybody at the World Junior Championships. So it's a small sample size, but so is Gretzky's 1 year, and those are the tough things to try and weigh it against some guys that played in the tournament, like Lindros, who played 3 tournaments.
Well, players get punished. Gretzky was punished by the fact he was so great he never came back. If he had played in one more World Junior and they'd won gold, he'd probably be #1 on the list. You call Eberle the most clutch player you've ever seen, but the most dominant performance in a World Juniors is the guy who came in at #4, in your opinion, is Jason Allison, correct?
Yeah, I had Jason Allison at #3, and I thought he truly dominated the 1994 tournament in Ostrava in the Czech Republic. I mean, he just took the puck below the hash marks, below the goal line, and turned everybody else inside out. And then in 1995, I thought he played really well. I mean, he led the tournament in assists, he led the tournament in points, but I don't think he was as dominant in 95 as he was in 94, but you put the 2 years together, and I can't think of too many players that had a bigger impact in back-to-back gold medal performances than Jason Allison.
They're so tarnished. Like, kids these days are, say, 15 or 16, and all they know of Jason Allison was the last couple of years with the Leafs and those ploddingly slow shootout attempts. You forget, and we showed that 95 game the other night, just how amazing he was in that tournament, and then early on, certainly in his NHL career. So that's 1 through 40 on the list. PK Subban, by the way, was #40 overall on that list. We'll see if Malcolm does end up starting for Canada. Perhaps by the time this is over, he'll creep in somewhere to an updated list. Malcolm Subban standing by with Mark Masters.
Malcolm, 3 goals against, 2 of which came with your team down 2 men. How did you assess your performance today?
I thought I played all right. You know, not much I can do on those goals, but obviously just got to keep battling. Fighting through the second one was a great shot through the screen, so I just got to keep battling through shots for the most part, and yeah.
How tough is it going to be watching Saturday, watching Jordan Binnington as this goalie battle continues?
Yeah, it's going to be great. Obviously, like I said from the start, we're all supporting each other, and he supported me a lot on the bench today when I came to the TV timeouts. You know, he's saying a lot of great things, keeping me up really positive. So I'm going to try and do the same for him on Saturday.
In general, do you feel like you've done enough to be the starter of this team come Boxing Day?
No, obviously it's still the first game, and we still got to see what Bitter does on Saturday. But hopefully I just got to keep playing my game, and hopefully we'll see what happens from there.
All right, thanks, Malcolm.
Thank you.